I bought every single powerlifting bleach lightener that Sweis carries so you don't have to, and we're gonna test them back to back to see which one is the best. So today, I'm gonna test them on these level 2 swatches and size them up on the Manelli scale to see which one truly is the best. And if you're new here, my name is Mirella Manelli. I'm a hair educator that loves helping hairstylists simplify their skills and business. And if you like videos like these, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with a friend so we can get the video to the right people. Now let's go ahead and get started. Now I've posted several videos testing different lighteners from all of your favorite distributor stores like Cosmoprof, Salon Centric, and even Sally's Beauties. And a lot of you came and asked me to test some of these that are on this table today, plus a gazillion more that are carried at other distributors. So I'm really excited to share the results with you today with these particular lighteners sold at Sweis. Now, Sweis is a really small distributor store that's located in Southern California as well as some other states. So some of these bleach lighteners may be carried at some other distributors depending on where you're located at in the country or the world. So if there's a lightener that's carried at one of those distributor stores and you haven't checked it out, make sure you check out the description down below for the Cosmoprof, Salon Centric, and Sally's Beauty Bleach Lightener Ultimate Bleach Guide. So I purchased all of the powerlifting bleach lighteners that are carried at Sweis that claim to have 8 to 9 plus levels of lift, and I also purchased the corresponding 20 volume developer because that's pretty standard developer that we would use as a hairstylist behind the chair, and then also to just give it a really fair chance across the board. What we're going to be testing today is Aloxxi Blonde 78 Ultra Lightener, MOROCCANOIL Blonde VOYAGE Powder Lightener, Sunlight's Moonlights Foil Lightener, Milbon Sophistone Elite Powder Lightener, and JKS Bleaching Powder. Now I'm really excited to introduce to you for the first time ever the Manelli Scale. Now as I've been going through all of these bleach lightener videos and testing a whole bunch of them, I realized that I needed to create a grading score for you so that way you can make the best decision on which one is the best for you. So I'll be scoring these lighteners on a scale of 1 to 10 on the following categories. And that's dust factor, odor, viscosity, processing time, swell factor, lifting power, integrity, neutralization, versatility, and price. I'm so excited to share these results with you, so now let's get right into our very first lightener. Now first up is Aloxxi Blonde 78 Ultra Lightener that retails for $20 for 14.1 ounces. Now this lightener claims to be a great lightener for all hair types, structures, and application methods, and it can also give you up to 9 levels of lift. Now there is another Aloxxi lightener that lives inside of the bleach collection. However, the only main difference between the two is that this one has its bond technology built inside, and for the main reason it was just out of stock at the distributor store, we opted in to at least try this one today. Now some features and benefits of this lightener that I'm actually kind of excited about to test is that it's recommended for dark bases resistant to lift and coarse hair structures. It features the proprietary Blonde 78 complex with built-in bond protection, and it adds intense hydration and protects the strength and integrity of the hair to allow for lightening no matter the texture. Now I'm really excited to give this bleach a test because I have never used it before, and if you've watched any of my videos, you know we first have to start out with the sniff test. So let's go ahead and open this up. Now containers are typically like my favorites. Oh, look at this. Got a scooper. I'm definitely smelling a little fragrance. It's actually kind of pleasant. So I'm just gonna cut this because I just wanna make sure we have like a neat dispensing way to get it in here. But it does smell pretty nice. Now we got a little bit of dust going on, which we'll test in just a second. But honestly, this is like my favorite type of packaging. I just like the container and the little bag. It just keeps everything really neat. But let's go ahead and do the actual sniff test. I mean, obviously I'm not gonna sniff this all the way, but it does smell nice. It's like a pleasant smell. So we'll see like when we put the developer together, if there's like an extra type of odor. Okay, so dust factor here. We already saw a little bit of dust going on. So this isn't terrible. I don't feel like it's offensive or any type of fragrance that comes from the dust. So let's go ahead and mix this up. So the way you mix this up is at a 1 to 1.5 or up to 1 to 2.5. And since a lot of you guys destroyed me for mixing up Blonde Me at a 1 to 2.5, I'm gonna be mixing this one up at just 1 to 2 so we can be really fair across the board with all these lighteners. Now you can use 10 through 30 volume, and 20 volume and less is recommended for on-scalp applications, and absolutely no 40 volume allowed. Now I have 30 grams of lightener right inside, and I'm just gonna do 1:2 mixing ratio. I do like how it feels. It kind of dispenses like a soft cloud type of thing, but also kind of sandy at the same time. And I feel like that's kind of why the dust factor is kind of like middle of the road for me. So let's go ahead and mix this up. And I'm really liking how this is feeling. I'm liking the viscosity so far. It's not really runny. I can tell it's starting to thicken up as I mix it together. And now I'm starting to get the true odor and fragrance from this. So while this smells really nice inside the package, now that it's been activated and mixed with the developer, I can really smell that like ammonia smell. But viscosity wise, I'm really liking how thick this is. I feel like I can get really nice precision application. Let's go ahead and do the brush test. And I am really loving this. I like how it feels so far. I feel like I can get really nice precision. It's not moving on my brush. So let's go ahead and get it on this level 2 swatch. Now, aside from the versatility in its mixing ratio and then also its application methods, it also has a processing time up to 55 minutes, and it does state to check the hair every 5 to 10 minutes based on the integrity of the hair. Now, so far this is going on pretty nicely. It is on the thicker side, even at a 1:2 mixing ratio. So I'm curious to know if just adding in a little bit more developer at a 1 to 2.5 would make that big of a difference. But I will say that that smell is starting to kind of settle down, and it's starting to smell how it originally smelled when I opened up just the powder by itself. But yeah, this feels like really smooth and hydrated as I'm putting it on. It's almost kind of like a cream. And now we wait 55 minutes. All right, so the time is up, and this is probably so far the most swelliest foil that I've ever had. I mean, I don't know if you can see that, but there's like clearly like this humpy hump going on. It's pretty puffy. So let's go ahead and take a look inside the bowl, because definitely swell factor can be an issue for a lot of hairstylists. If you can't get that precision, or get the precision and then allow for that swell factor to get in the way of bleeding foils and a whole lot of other things, then that can be a problem. But in the bowl, it definitely is pretty airy, very cloud-like. Definitely a lot of swell factor with this one, even inside this bowl and inside this foil. So let's go ahead and open this bad boy up. Dun, dun, dun. So this actually looks like a really great lift. I see a lot of yellow tones going on, so I definitely will give it that. And I love that it's a white base, because you know how I feel sometimes about the blue base lighteners. They get in the way of tricking your eye of how light they actually got. And I'm really liking this. It does feel extraordinarily puffy. So this would be something that I would keep a little eye on, or maybe a little bit of a concern for me. You know, when you start adding body heat into the mix, it definitely can affect the swell factor. But you know, this, I can't say it feels super hydrated, but it does feel creamy. But I want to go ahead and wash this one out. Now that I have this Aloxxi swatch all dry, I think we got a really great lift. I do, however, see a little bit of golden warm tones going on. I'm not quite sure we got to a level 8. However, we are going to size it up next to the level finder in just a second. Now, as far as integrity goes, this actually feels pretty nice. It's kind of like middle of the road for me as far as like softness. I can't say it feels dry or dehydrated. I kind of like how it does feel. So overall integrity, really great result. But as far as the level of lift that we got, let's go ahead and take out the level finder. So overall, first impressions, we quite didn't get to an 8, but we also quite didn't get to a 7 either. We're somewhere right in between. So for that reason, I'm going to give this a 7.5. I do think we got a really great lift, considering we are using a level 2 swatch, which is pretty dark. But just kind of like looking at this, I am seeing quite a bit of those golden tones coming out. And I would love to kind of get to that level 8, because that is the golden zone for me. So considering this is a 7.5, I am going to need to take into consideration that extra little bit of control in my toner formula, which I tried to shy away from. Now, overall, I think we got a really great lift in comparison to this level 2. I really liked the application and the viscosity. I thought it felt amazing as I was putting it on. I even liked the processing time and really the amount of lift that we got in that time frame. I really think this is a lightener that I would like to explore a little bit more because, again, the integrity, it feels pretty nice, and I do think we got a really great lift. I'm just kind of curious if I, switch up the mixing ratios or maybe process a little longer or reapplication, really what will it do for me? So this is definitely one that I would recommend. Next up is MOROCCANOIL Blonde Voyage Powder Lightener that retails for $24 for a 17.6 ounce container. Now this lightener claims to give you up to 9 levels of lift, and it's a fast acting lightener that also helps with neutralization, and it's great for all application methods. Some features and benefits is that it's powered by Bond Care plus Argan ID system that protects and nourishes the hair during the lightening service, strengthens hair and reinforces bonds to help reduce breakage and damage, and it's a gentle, non-irritating formula. Now, I've actually used this lightener before. We have it in my salon. I'm pretty familiar with it, and I do agree it is a great lightener, but I've never tested it on the level 2 swatches, which I'm really excited to do today. Now, this container is a little unique. It has this little spout here, and I actually don't use it in this way, so part of the reason is I honestly like scooping it out of a container. That's just my preference. So let's go ahead and mix this up. And because I'm using MOROCCANOIL lightener, I'm also using a MOROCCANOIL brush and the MOROCCANOIL whisk. Now the way you mix this up is at a 1 to 1.5 or up to 1 to 2. So we're gonna be doing 1 to 2 for this test. So let's go ahead and dispense this. I actually haven't really ever paid attention to the dust factor, so that'll be kind of interesting. I see a little bit of dust, but not anything super crazy. Oh no, maybe, never mind. 911, 911. And this is partly why I don't really like the little dispensing like that. Because yeah, now that you can see it, it's like, did you see that? It like shot out. Okay, so this is pretty dusty. And now I'm gonna mix up 1 to 2 so that we can be really fair with this test. So like I mentioned, the powder is kind of like a little sandy. It has like a sandy kind of rocky texture. Now smell wise, honestly, I can't really smell this lightener too much other than like when it's dusting around. And you can see that it's mixing up pretty well. It does take a minute to kind of thicken up. And I think because I've used this lightener before, I just kind of know how it works. And now that it's mixed together, I'm starting to get the fragrance activated. So let's do a little sniff test. This is really strong for sure. Like you can really smell that ammonia in it. And at this 1 to 2 mixing ratio where it's at, this wouldn't necessarily be like my most favorable consistency because you can see it's a little like runny, but this is a 1 to 2. It does give you like another option at a lower mixing ratio like most bleach lighteners do. So like I said, this is one that you kind of like need to let it sit and thicken up a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up for our application and we'll do the brush test. Now it's only been about 60 seconds to set this up, but you can already tell in just that little bit of time, like look at how thick this got. So let's try this out now by scooping it on the brush. And this is why I really like this lightener so much, because of the precision and the viscosity. I just really like how it feels on my brush. Let's go ahead and put this on. The only like probably kind of negative for me with this lightener as far as like application goes is there tends to be kind of like these little rocks, little tiny granules that are just almost impossible to mix up. But after you let it kind of sit in the bowl for just, like I said, a few minutes, it starts to kind of mix together really nicely. And it just feels so smooth in the foil. And I almost wish like this was the first time I was using it so I could have a complete blind test to this, but the results on this swatch will definitely be a surprise for me. I do think getting this lightener onto the hair makes it really easy, especially when it comes to saturation. I'm really able to work the lightener through all sides of the hair, ensuring that I'm gonna get the best lift. There's some lighteners that are just kind of like almost harder to push through. Now, one thing that I did forget to mention is that if you are going to do on-scalp applications, you do not want to go past that 20 volume developer, and the processing time on this is up to 50 minutes. And now we wait. Now that the timer has gone off, it's been 50 minutes. Like I mentioned, I've used this lightener before, but I am blown away at how much swell factor we got with this. Like, look how puffy this is in the bowl. Like, this is insane. Like, this is actually shocking to me, and it's probably because I've never let a bowl of lightener with this much lightener sit in the bowl, but definitely swell factor is wow factor for me. And kind of what's going on in this foil too, pretty puffy, very much like the first one that we tested. So I'm just kind of surprised. I know that it does swell, and you know, again, maybe you get different results with the body heat, and usually that increases the swell factor, but let's go ahead and open this up. And no surprise here, I was expecting it to give me a really great lift. It so far looks amazing, but definitely swell factor here. Lots going on for sure, so that could be a deterrent for some. I definitely see a really great lift. However, the blue can play a little trick on your eye, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove this so we can give you the results. But overall, I can't say it's like the smoothest feeling, but it also doesn't feel super dry or dehydrating. So let me go ahead and take this out. Now that I have the Moroccan swatch rinsed out, shampooed, and dried, I'm really impressed with the lift that we got. This almost looks like it could be an 8, but I'll size it up to the level finder in just a second. Now, as far as integrity goes, it does feel pretty nice. Again, I'd probably say like middle of the road for me on this one. It doesn't feel dry, but it doesn't feel like the most silkiest hair could ever feel like, but I do feel like it does feel nice. And since this is a lightener that I am familiar with, I honestly was expecting nothing less than amazing lifting results, and a level 8 is the golden zone for me. So let's go ahead and see if it truly lifted to that level 8. So right off the bat, looking at this, I know for a fact this is not a 7. There are no orangey tones at all in this, but I definitely see the gold. I see a solid level 8. I might even see a little bit of 9s kind of poking through those ends, but overall, I really feel like I'm seeing that level 8 swatch is a solid level 8 for me, which again, that level 8 is the golden zone. Anything that's 8 and above, I can definitely control. But 8 is also a great level to enhance warmth. So I'm really loving this lift that we got, especially on a level 2 swatch. Now, looking at this side by side to the level 2 swatch, you can see we got a really great lift. Now, on the downside for this lightener, we had two things that were kind of like a negative, and that was definitely the dust factor and then also the swelling. So if that is a concern for you and you want to maybe try to mitigate that, like what we do in our salon is we add it into a container to minimize the dust. And then the swell factor, I feel like that's a matter of just learning how the bleach lightener works. And you can, you know, foil a little less away from the scalp or little things like that as you learn how to work with it, or maybe even lower your volume of developer that you're using. But nonetheless, this did an amazing job, and this is one that I will definitely continue to use. And like I said, this is a great lightener, so I would definitely recommend it. Next up is Moonlights Kaolin based foil lightener by Sunlights, and this retails for $24 for a 17.6 ounce container. Now, what makes this lightener so unique is that it's the first ever clay lightener that was specifically designed to be applied in a foil highlight. Some key features and benefits of this lightener is that it's a gentle yet powerful lifting lightener. It has a blue tint to help you achieve up to that 9 levels of lift. It has a creamy consistency, smooth application, and it protects on conditions. Now, what I thought was really interesting about this clay lightener is not only does it go in a foil, which I'm really excited to test it out because I've never used it before, but on the back of the label, it did come highly recommended to pair with its 25 volume dedicated developer. Now, this does allow you to go up to 40 volume. However, it's telling you to mix it with 25 volume, so that was a little confusing. So now let's go ahead and open this up and do the sniff test. Now, there are instructions on the back of this label, which are really helpful, but I had to go on actually YouTube to go find the rest of the information. So I would like a little bit more clarity, but we'll see if there's a little pamphlet inside. Now, it does come with a scooper and a container with bag, which is so nice. Now, there is not a little packet inside, which I'm a little bummed. Now let's go ahead and dispense this. Now, as you can see, there is a little bit of a blue tint to this. So let's go ahead and do the sniff test. Definitely has a fragrance to it. I can't say it's like super pleasant, but it's also not offensive yet. I just don't want to sniff too much because I know these are powders. But let's go ahead and see dust factor wise, like what we're dealing with. Oh, this has a lot of dust considering that it is a clay. I was just kind of expecting it to maybe not be as dusty. Not a super bad deterrent though. I mean, it is a lot, but let's go ahead and mix this up. Now this mixing ratio was a little interesting and I'm not sure a lot of styles would actually pay attention to it, but this lightener needs to be mixed up according to volume. So instead of measuring in grams and weight, we're going to be measuring by what can actually fit inside of this scoop lightener. So we're going to take 1 level scoop of our lightener and dispense that. So we got approximately 22 grams of lightener. So now what I'm going to do is add in my cream developer, and it says to mix up by volume. So according to like what fits inside of this scooper, that's what you're going to dispense, and that's your mixing ratio. So that's what the 1-to-1 by volume means. So since we have 54 grams in total minus a 22 original grams, that leaves us with 32 grams of developer to our powder. So again, when you're going to be using a new product, you want to make sure you're actually reading the directions so we know exactly what the best mixing ratio is. Now, after you learn the rules and how it works, definitely break them if it works for you. But let's go ahead and mix this up. So overall, how it feels, it honestly doesn't feel like a traditional clay lightener. It kind of feels like a powder lightener, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of like a little sandy for sure. So let's go ahead and mix this up. Now this does recommend that you homogenize it, you fold it over with a brush or a whisk, just something that you're not gonna overly mix it. You don't wanna mix it aggressively, and that's pretty common in a lot of clay type lighteners. But so far this is feeling really nice. I kind of can't smell anything yet, so let's see. Kind of smells similar to what was already inside this package. So kind of like middle of the road, not really offensive. It's kind of like on the lighter of a fragrance, but it does smell like a bleach lightener. So far this feels really creamy. I'm loving this so far. Let's go ahead and do the brush test. Now doing my first little scoop here, I'm really loving the viscosity. I like how this is staying on my brush, and I'm just so excited to try out this clay lightener that's made for foils. So let's go ahead and get this on. Sunlight claims that you can use any manufacturer's developers and it probably will work really well. However, they do recommend that you use their dedicated developer. So I like that it was kind of being honest with the fact that it's giving you the option to use other cream developers should you choose to. This also came with a strong advisory to not process with heat and to process only at room temperature. Now, so far, I feel like I can really work this lightener through really well. So saturation wise, I feel like we can get through both sides of the hair pretty easily. I think the thing that I'm most excited about this lightener is to see the swell factor with this, because usually a clay based lightener does not swell. So I'm really excited to see that. But the other thing that was also really interesting to see if we can get a lot of levels of lift out of this is because the timing on this is the least that I've ever seen, which is to not exceed 30 minutes of processing time. So we shall see after 30 minutes if we get a lot of levels of lift with this 25 volume developer. And now we set the timer. Now that it's been 30 minutes, I am really pleasantly surprised to see we didn't get very much swelling. There is a little bit of swelling, but it's so minimal that I just can't even say that there's much swelling at all. Now, as far as the foil lightener goes, it does also feel just slightly puffy, but again, not to the point where I can say that it's going to affect my end result. So let's go ahead and take a little peek. Okay, So I can't say this looks like the lightest one that we've had. However, it did lift pretty light for 30 minutes. So this is pretty impressive for 30 minutes. Now I know it says to not exceed 30 minutes, but if you were like a rule breaker, maybe you could play around and test it by going past that. I can't say that we got a lot of lift, but again, I kind of need to wash this off so I can really see the true end results. And this actually feels pretty hydrating, so I'm excited to wash this off. Now that I have the Moonlights by Sunlights all washed out, shampooed, dried, you can see we got a pretty good result here. I would definitely say this is kind of giving me a lot of warmth. I almost see a little bit of orange kind of going on with this one. So I'm excited to size this up to the level finder. Now, considering this was a clay lightener, I did like the application of it. I liked how hydrated it felt as I was applying it. And overall, I think this feels really nice. I like the integrity of this. So let's go ahead and size this up next to the level finder. So right off the bat, I'm already gearing myself to that level 7 because I am seeing quite a bit of orange tones through this, and it is kind of on the deeper side. It's not as dark as a 7, but it's definitely not close to the 8 whatsoever. So this one I'm going to give like a 7.25. I just feel like this would probably be a great lightener choice if you want to enhance warmth. I feel like a level 7 if you want like more of those coppery caramel type warm tones, this might be a really great level to lift to. But anything that is more on the cooler side, I would definitely opt away from this type of lift. Now overall, compared to this level 2 swatch, I think we got a pretty decent lift going from a 2 to a 7, although this did claim up to 9 levels of lift. But for a clay-based lightener, I'm actually kind of impressed. Now there was a downside to this lightener, and that was its versatility. I felt as though this is only to be used as a foil lightening service. So as far as doing on-scalp application or even open air balayage, you are kind of limited. Now on the positive side, we didn't see much swelling with this one. So for that reason, I really liked it. So this would be something that I'm kind of interested in playing with, but maybe on lighter levels of hair. However, if you are working on really dark hair like I do in the salon, this would probably be one I would skip unless I'm working on levels 5 and above. Next up is Milbon Sophistone Elite Powder Lightener that retails for $40 for a 35.3 ounce container. Now this little container right here retailed me at $4. Now this was also gifted to me by the Sweis rep, which she was so kind to let me try it out for today's video, so thank you so much. Now what makes this lightener unique is that it was scientifically designed to give you max amount of lift with the protection built inside. Some key features and benefits is that it's a versatile blue powder lightener and kaolin infused. It's boosted with poly shield, and it not only gives you up to that 9 levels of lift, but it's going to minimalize the damage. It has guar gum infusion with naturally derived guar gum for optimal product consistency and ease of application. And these features contribute to an increased precision during placement. Now, I hope I'm saying the Sophistone, guar gum. If you want to correct me in the comments, please do. But basically, the way you mix this up is at a 1:2 or 1:3 mixing ratio, and you can use 10 through 40 volume developer. But for this test, we're going to be doing 20 volume, so let's go ahead and open this up. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this open, and we're going to dispense the whole amount here, so that way we can test the dust factor. Now, this says it has 40 grams inside, so let's go ahead and see. So we definitely got some dust. It's kind of like middle to high road for me. High road. Now this feels really sandy, kind of like the MOROCCANOIL, so pretty similar. And because we're going to make this as equal as possible on our test, we are going to do the 1:2 mixing ratio with its dedicated 20 volume developer. So this developer feels really thick and creamy, which I really like. I feel like all of the developers so far in today's test have been creamy and rich, which kind of tells me that there's lots of conditioners and buffers going on in there. So now I'm going to go ahead and mix this up. So far this feels kind of thick, to be completely honest, but not too thick. I was expecting it to be a little bit more on the runny side. And again, this is mixing up so similar to the MOROCCANOIL. I see the little granule rocks in there. it feels the same. I think the only difference is that the Moroccanoil starts off really thin and then it thickens up. This one feels already kind of like thick right off the bat. I totally forgot to do the sniff test because I really didn't smell a fragrance to begin with. So definitely low on the odor fragrance, but I can smell it when I get really close. So not too bad. Doesn't have like a floral smell or anything, but just a bleach smell. So let's do our first little scoop here. And this feels pretty nice. It's pretty thick for a 1 to 2. And I already like that it's gonna give me that nice precision. I can tell from my brush. So it's gonna get this on. It's going on pretty nice. I do see or feel the little granules in this one, the little sand kind of going on, but I can tell by my brush stroke exactly how much precision this will give me. So I definitely see a really good potential with this one. I would say this one, because it's on the thicker side, it might give you a little bit of pushback if you're using really thick sections. So I would definitely recommend thin sections with this particular bleach mixing ratio. And you really should be doing thin sections anyways if you want maximum amount of lift out of your bleach lightener. But this one in particular, I can definitely see that you would need that. Now the processing time for this one is 20 to 40 minutes. So I'm really excited to see how much lift we get. And the fact that this is formulated with kaolin, again, that's the clay. So I think that's kind of why I'm getting that almost kind of clay feel out of this one. Very similar to the Moonlights. This one's like if Moroccanoil and Moonlights had a baby for me. That's exactly how this all kind of feels so far. But we'll see what the results tell us. And now let's go ahead and set the timer. So it's been 40 minutes for the Milbon lightener, and I am really shocked. I don't know, this is like a tie for how much swelling we got. This is like the most swelling I've definitely seen in a bowl. But also I did mix up quite a bit, so considering this was technically 4 ounces of bleach lightener, but still nonetheless, it's a lot of air going on, super puffy. And what also feels like in this foil is also a lot of puff action too. I don't know what's going on with the lighteners this go round, but we have a lot of puffiness going on, and I don't know if it's maybe because it's a little warm inside my studio today, but let's go ahead and take a peek at what 40 minutes has done for us. I mean, so far I like it. I really do like the lift. Let's wipe this clean though. It looks like an amazing lift for 40 minutes. I mean, 40 minutes really isn't that long to leave on a lightener. Usually if, you know, a lightener wants like 60 minutes, 50 minutes, but 40 minutes, this looks pretty good. But again, that blue tone that we see going on might trick my eyes. So let's go ahead and wash this off. Now that Milbon Sophistone is all shampooed and dried, I think we got a great result. I am seeing a little bit of golden warm tones kind of going on. So once I set it up next to the level finder, we'll truly know how much lift we actually got out of this product. However, the integrity is just kind of like a little middle of the road for me. Didn't feel quite super hydrated, but it wasn't dry either. So I feel like overall though, it does feel really nice, and I do think we got a really great lift. So let's go ahead and size this up to the level finder to find out how much lift we got on this level 2 swatch. Now immediately looking at this level finder, I know that this is definitely not a 7, but it's also not quite an 8. It's like almost an 8. I just see the slightest little bit of orangey tones in it, and so for that reason I feel like I'm gonna measure this one at a 7.75. It's just almost an 8, so it's definitely almost at that golden zone. This is definitely one I would use to enhance warmth, but I feel like if I just kind of push this lightener just a little bit, I definitely could make it work for me. Now that it's next to the level 2 swatch, I think we got a really great lift, and like I mentioned, integrity wise it feels pretty good, and I just think we got a pretty good general lift, almost at that golden zone of an 8. Now the only negative that I can say out of this lightener is that it did have quite a bit of swelling, so if that's a concern for you, that would definitely be something that I would learn how it works and what causes the swelling, maybe lower the volume of developer you're using, and definitely take into consideration the heat source in your salon. So all of those things would definitely be a concern. However, I really felt like we got a really great lift, and I really liked the versatility of this lightener, being that we can do on and off scalp application, foil applications, and really the possibilities are endless. So for that reason, I definitely would recommend this one. Next is JKS Bleaching Powder that retails for $16.25 for a 17.7 ounce container. Now what makes this lightener really unique is that not only can it give you up to 9 levels of lift, but it's truly dust free, so we'll see about that, and it guarantees excellent results. Now some key features and benefits of this lightener is that it neutralizes pale yellow tones, it requires less developer than other bleach lighteners, leaves the hair in excellent condition, it's truly dust free, and it's hairdresser friendly. Not quite sure what that means, but let's find out. Now let's go ahead and take a look inside this box. So we got a little scooper and we got this bag. So I'm thinking they just like want to be green and maybe have you put it in your own container, which actually I'm not mad about because I end up putting it in my own container anyways, to be completely honest. I can like smell it from, I'm like probably about a foot away from it. I can't put my finger on what it smells like, but I'm getting like a little bit of Play-Doh smell. So you can think of sweet Play-Doh. That's exactly what it smells like to me. But definitely a little strong. So let's go ahead and get this in the bowl so we can do the dust test. So let's go ahead and scoop this out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a level scoop just so we can really kind of see here. Definitely like on the low end of dust. I can't say it's truly dust free, but definitely some dust going on, but on the low side. Still pretty low. I mean, considering I'm like doing it from here, it's pretty low. Now this one is kind of interesting though, before I actually mix it up. It literally is like the finest type of sand you can imagine. So if it looks really soft, like I honestly want it to play with it, make little designs out of it because it's so nice. Because this one has a really interesting mixing ratio, much like the Moonlights lightener, you're going to need to measure this one also by volume. So that's why it does come with a scooper, and we're gonna wanna do a level scoop and then also a level scoop of our dedicated developer to go with it. So that way we can get the most accurate mixing ratio possible. So just to clarify, this is going to ask you to do 25 milliliters of your powder to 35 to 45 milliliters of your dedicated developer. And milliliters do not convert to grams because milliliters is all about volume, measuring by what can fit inside of this scooper, versus grams is measured by the actual weight. So that's why you really want to pay attention to these types of different lighteners when you are mixing them to make sure you get the best and most accurate results possible. So I'm going to do 1 level scoop of my powder. And this is giving me about 27 grams of my powder. And now I'm going to measure my 20 volume developer. So you can see how really thick and creamy this is. And I'm gonna go ahead and dispense that. So we've got a total of 56 grams total of product combined. Now something that I thought was really interesting about this powder lightener is that it has a chart based on the amount of lift that you want would go with a corresponding developer choice. So for example, if you wanted 6 or more levels of lift, they highly recommend that you use the 20 volume developer and that you process for the full processing time with that dedicated developer at 45 minutes. Okay, so let's go ahead and mix this up. I don't know how to feel about this one. It kind of almost feels very fibrous. It's like sticking to itself and it's really freaking thick. So I don't know if I need to mix up some more developer in this. I almost feel like I do. This literally feels like a crazy paste. Like it's definitely, if you want accurate precision, this will give it to you, but it's almost too thick. So I'm gonna add in just like the tiniest bit because maybe for some crazy reason I just didn't measure this correctly. Maybe I just needed that extra drop. I just need to get it to move just a little bit here for me. But already off the bat, I'm just like not really loving how thick this is, like too thick for me. I really wish there was a way we could measure like grams or ounces or something instead of milliliters with this one. So let's go ahead and do the brush test, even though I don't even think we need the brush test. So this is probably, like I said, it's kind of fibrous. It's definitely really thick, but I feel like because of it, I can't get like a smooth, like rounded grab of this lightener. I can't quite explain it. It's just too thick for me, but let's go ahead and get this on because maybe it'll surprise me. And this definitely still also feels like almost too thick. You know, precision wise, I mean, if I needed to put bleach lightener in just one spot, this would probably be it. But I think the other part is knowing the swell factor for this. It does feel like the thickest cream you can possibly think of, but I'm just like not in love with how this is spreading at all. And I think for that reason, like I just don't feel like I can get the best saturation possible. Like it's not gonna seep through. And I mean, I don't know if the camera is gonna be able to get this, but you can literally see my brush strokes. That's how thick this thing is. And I'm kind of using quite a bit here. And this did claim that it doesn't need as much developer, but I'm feeling like you probably kind of need it. Literally looks like tire marks on my swatch from the brush. Like that's how thick. This is like hands down the thickest lightener I've ever used or tried. So if you're a JKS Bleach lightener user and you have any advice for how I'm supposed to be mixing this up, mixing ratios, anything at all, please let me know down below in the comments. And now we wait. Now that it's been 45 minutes, we're gonna check out the swell factor here. And to be completely honest, I don't see too much of swell, very minimal to be honest. So that is a plus for this lightener so far. Now in the foil is a little bit of a different story. I do feel a little bit of swelling action going on, lots of puffy puff. So maybe it's just, you know, overall a reaction that we've seen throughout this entire day and video is maybe there's a reaction with the foil lightener or maybe the temperature of our room today. But let's go and take a little peek of what's inside. Looks like we got like a pretty good lift going on here. But just like any blue lightener, it's probably gonna play a trick on our eye. It doesn't feel super hydrated, but it also doesn't feel really dry. But I'm excited to rinse this one off and see what it looks like. Now that JKS is shampooed and dried, this one actually surprised me. I'm kind of thinking that JKS stands for Just Kidding Stylist because the mixing ratio and the viscosity just kind of really got me, but I'm kind of surprised by this lift. It looks pretty light. I'm kind of almost thinking we might have gotten a solid level 8, but we'll definitely size it up to the level finder in just a second. Now, the other thing that really surprised me was the integrity. It does feel pretty nice on the hair. So for that reason, I think this, you know, is something that you might want to consider. Just that mixing ratio for me was a kind of a negative for me. However, let's go ahead and put this up to the level finder and see where it lies. Now, right off the bat, I know this definitely is not a 7. However, it's not quite an 8 either. It's almost an 8. It's just kissing that level 8. I want to give it an 8 so bad. And I do think that if I push this one a little bit more, it definitely can get there. However, I'm going to grade this one at a 7.75, like literally almost there. So if you're trying to enhance warmth, this might be a great lightener for you. Now, side by side next to this level 2 swatch, we got an amazing lift out of this, and the integrity does feel really great. Now, some of the negatives for this for me was definitely the viscosity. I personally just did not like how it mixed up in the bowl. I even had to add in a little bit more developer just so I could work my brush through it, and I just felt like it was so pasty. It almost felt like I was putting spackle on a piece of hair. Now, as far as the swell factor though, we got minimal swelling, so that definitely was a benefit. And when it comes to the versatility on it, I just really felt like the mixing ratio was a little too confusing for me, and I just felt like based on how I was applying it and what I was able to achieve with the saturation, I was a little limited. So for that reason, even though we got a really great lift, I'm not sure I would want to use this lightener again, so I wouldn't recommend it. Now that I have these swatches all lined up, there were 2 on here that had a really high score on the Manelli scale, and that was the Aloxxi and the Milbon. Now, the thing that I really loved about the Aloxxi that scored the highest was definitely its versatility. I felt like we could do a ton of different types of application, mixing ratios, and basically it was endless with what we were able to do with this particular lightener. The price was a really great deal for the amount of product that we got. Now, the two negatives for Aloxxi was definitely the swell factor and the dust factor, but I feel like these are things that most of us can kind of see past a little bit. But if swelling is a factor for you, that would definitely be something that I would just be a little cautious of. Now, when it comes to Milbon, the thing that I loved most about it, and it scored high, was the versatility and the lift. Again, I felt like the possibilities were endless with on and off scalp applications and the mixing ratios. But the thing that really blew me away about the Milbon Sophistone was the lift that we achieved. We almost got to that solid level 8. The negative for Milbon was definitely the swell factor and the dust. However, if that's something you can get past, this is definitely a lightener I would consider. Now, the lightener that had the highest lift was MOROCCANOIL, and no surprise because, again, it's a lightener that I do use in my salon, so I was expecting nothing less. Now, the two negatives at what gave it its lower score was definitely the dust factor and the swell factor, which kind of actually surprised me. But the thing that I loved most about it, of course, is the lift. We're always looking for the highest lifting lightener, and I also love the versatility of the MOROCCANOIL. So if the swell factor and the dust factor is something you can see past, that is still one that I would highly consider off of this list. Now, again, take these results with a grain of salt. If you are using a lightener that's on this list or even in my past videos and they are working for you, definitely continue to use them. Don't let these results deter you from something that's working for you. Now, if any of these results surprised you, please let me know down below in the comments, or if there's a lightener that I have not tested yet in any of my lightener videos, please let me know down below. I'm so excited to give them a go. And if you like free education sent right to your inbox, be sure to head on over to my website, MirellaManelli.com, where you can sign up for my newsletter and be the first to know when new education launches. And speaking of hair education, Airbnb University is now open for a limited time. It's only open for a few times a year, and I would love to see you in class. All you have to do to sign up is head on over to airbnbuniversity.com. And if you happen to miss this open enrollment, please get on the wait list. You're not going to want to miss out on the amazing education built right inside to help you improve your skill set and your confidence in hair and business. Now, I really hope you enjoyed this bleach guide from the best lighteners sold at Sweis Beauty. And if you did, please give this video a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe, and share this video with a hairstylist friend that you think would love to see these results. And like always, thank you so much for sticking with me through this entire video, and I will see you in the next one. You and I, just the two of us.